The morning mist clung to the mountainside like an old memory refusing to fade. Sarah Mitchell stood on the porch of her grandfather's worn-out cabin, holding a chipped mug of instant coffee, watching sunlight struggle through the trees. She was 45, divorced, jobless, and tired of pretending she was okay. The life she had built in Charlotte, the consulting job, the perfect house, the image of success, had all crumbled faster than she could hold it together. Now all she had left was this decaying cabin deep in the North Carolina mountains, and a letter from her late grandfather sealed with red wax. The locals had warned her. That place has been falling apart for 20 years. But Sarah wasn't here for comfort. She was here for answers. Inside the letter, written in her grandfather's careful script, were words that made no sense to her then but now echoed in her mind. Look beneath what others see. The real treasure is always hidden from plain sight. As she stood there, her 8-year-old son Lucas tugged her hand, his voice sleepy yet curious. "Mom, do we really have to stay here? Dad's apartment has a pool." Sarah smiled through the ache in her chest. "Let's just see what we find, okay?" She didn't know it yet, but that decision to stay even one more night would change everything. Inside, the cabin smelled of dust, pine, and long-forgotten time. The fireplace was black with soot, the floor uneven, but something about the place felt alive, as if her grandfather's presence lingered in every board and beam. She found the brass key mentioned in the letter beneath the third stone by the garden wall, just as he said. What it opened, she didn't know. That night, as the wind howled through cracked shutters, she reread his note by flashlight. This old place has kept more secrets than the mountains themselves. Look beneath what others see. Lucas had fallen asleep beside her, his small hand resting over hers, and in that silence a forgotten memory surfaced. She was his age once, sitting on this same porch, watching her grandfather carve tiny wooden animals from oak. "Every piece of wood has a story hiding inside it," he'd told her. "You just have to be patient enough to let it speak." That memory stirred something in her, a feeling she hadn't known in years. Not fear, not sadness, but wonder. The next morning, Lucas called from the fireplace. "Mom, there's something behind this stone." She rushed over, and together they pried it loose, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a carved wooden piece, no bigger than her palm, so beautifully detailed it seemed to breathe. It wasn't just art, it was mastery. And suddenly, Sarah understood. This was no ordinary cabin. This was her grandfather's secret world. The discovery consumed her thoughts. She searched every corner of the cabin, every creak in the floor, until she found it, a section of boards running opposite the rest. Beneath them lay a small wooden box, sealed with a lock that perfectly fit her brass key. Inside was a leather-bound journal filled with sketches, designs, and a lineage of signatures. The Mitchell Workshop, Est 1923. Each page told a story of 3 generations of master craftsmen whose art once graced the homes of the wealthy and powerful. But the last entries broke her heart. The old ways are dying. The world no longer values what takes time to create. I've hidden the workshop so it may survive until hands worthy enough find it again. As Sarah traced the faded ink with trembling fingers, something inside her shifted. She realized her grandfather hadn't just left her a cabin, he'd left her a legacy. Lucas held up a second key found at the bottom of the box, ornate and glowing faintly in the afternoon light. "Maybe it opens the secret workshop," he whispered, eyes wide with adventure. Sarah smiled, the first real smile in weeks. "Then let's find it." What neither of them knew was that unlocking that door would open far more than just a room. It would unlock their purpose. Behind an old bookcase, they found a faint outline in the wall, and there it was, a hidden keyhole waiting for the ornate bronze key. The moment Sarah turned it, gears clicked softly and the back panel swung open, revealing a workshop untouched by time. The air was heavy with the scent of wood oil and memory. Tools hung in perfect order. Dust had not dared to settle here. In the center stood a workbench illuminated by a sliver of sunlight, and on it an unfinished jewelry box, half-carved, its details breathtakingly intricate. A note rested beside it. "Sarah, if you found this, the tools are waiting. What we make here is not furniture, it's legacy made tangible. The choice is yours." Tears blurred her vision as she picked up a carving knife, feeling how perfectly it fit her hand. Lucas whispered, "This place feels magic." And maybe it was. For the first time since the divorce, since losing everything, Sarah didn't feel broken, she felt chosen, but destiny has a way of testing those who dare to claim it. Because just as she began to dream of rebuilding, the outside world came knocking in the form of a county inspector, and a man in a suit who wanted to buy her land before she even knew its worth. They called it a safety inspection, but Sarah could see through the polite smiles and the veiled threats. The man in the expensive suit, Charles Morrison, spoke smoothly, offering to help her sell before legal issues made the property worthless. His tone was gentle, but his eyes weren't. She refused him, and from that moment the pressure began. Warning letters, fines, sudden notices declaring the cabin uninhabitable. Her savings vanished in repair costs, but each night she returned to the workshop. She and Lucas learned together, cutting, sanding, shaping, failing, and trying again. And with the help of Tom, a kind mechanic from down the mountain, and his nephew Jake, a young craftsman in training, Sarah began to see the workshop not as a burden but as a beginning. The first cutting board she finished was uneven, full of flaws, but Lucas smiled like it was treasure. "Grandpa would have been proud," he said. For the first time, Sarah believed him. The cabin that everyone called worthless was slowly coming back to life, and so was she. Yet behind the kindness of some, she could sense something darker stirring, whispers of land deals, hidden agendas, and a secret her grandfather may have died protecting. Then came the storm, the kind that turns mountains into rivers. When lightning split the sky and rain battered the old roof, Sarah feared the worst. The workshop would flood, and everything her grandfather preserved would be lost. But when she and Tom raced there through the rain, they found something else. The cabin held strong. The workshop was dry. And hidden in a cabinet behind jars of stain, Sarah found an envelope sealed with her grandfather's handwriting. Inside were documents that made her breath catch, property deeds, mineral rights, and surveys spanning 200 acres of land, not the 40 she thought she'd inherited. Among them, a handwritten note. "They'll circle like vultures when I'm gone, but this land holds more than they can see. Protect it, and it will protect you." In that moment, everything made sense: the inspectors, the pressure, Morrison's sudden interest. Her grandfather hadn't just hidden a legacy of craftsmanship. He'd hidden land worth millions, the same land those men were desperate to seize. Sarah folded the papers carefully, her hands trembling. She had been fighting to save a cabin. Now she was fighting to protect her family's name. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope between fear and faith. Sarah met with lawyers, gathered proof, and began restoring the cabin with renewed determination. Every nail she hammered, every beam she sanded became a promise to her grandfather, to her son, to herself. Word spread across Cedar Creek that Edwin Mitchell's granddaughter wasn't backing down. Locals who had once doubted her now began offering help: lumber, tools, even meals. The story of the city woman rebuilding her grandpa's dream reached neighboring towns. People came to see the workshop, and when Sarah displayed her first finished piece, the completed jewelry box her grandfather had started, it left them speechless. It wasn't just wood and polish. It was love made visible. Even Lucas had begun carving animals like the ones she remembered from childhood. Each stroke of the chisel carried forward something timeless, proof that sometimes the most broken places can build the strongest souls. And though developers still circled like wolves, Sarah no longer feared them. Because now she knew who she was, the last of the Mitchells, the keeper of their legacy. Months later, the mountains glowed under autumn light. The once ruined cabin now stood proud again, not perfect, but alive. Inside the workshop, Sarah placed the final piece of wood into a large cabinet, her masterpiece, carved with generations of Mitchell patterns. As she ran her hand over the smooth surface, she heard Lucas behind her. "Mom," he said softly, "is this what Grandpa meant by treasure?" She smiled through tears. "Yes, sweetheart, the treasure wasn't gold. It was this, our hands, our hearts, our story." Outside, a black SUV appeared again, Morrison's. But this time, Sarah didn't hide. She stepped out onto the porch, papers in hand, sunlight catching the brass key hanging from her neck. "This land isn't for sale," she said, her voice steady. "It's for building." Morrison said nothing, only stared as the mountain wind lifted her hair, the same wind that once carried her grandfather's laughter. As he drove away, Sarah turned to the hills and whispered, "We did it, Grandpa." The workshop door creaked open, light spilling across her tools as if inviting her to begin again. And to everyone listening, if you've ever felt lost, if you've ever thought you had nothing left, remember. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money or property. It's courage. It's legacy. And it's waiting for you to claim it. If this story moved you, share it, because someone out there might just need to hear that it's never too late to rebuild what was lost.